Are you looking to get ahead in your profession level for Burning Crusade Classic? Well, you've come to the right place. Today I'm going to be going through all the professions in WoW Classic and show you a quick way to level past 300 with materials that you can gather before you get to Outlands. Before I get started, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more of my videos as they go live. It really helps me out. Thanks. There's a lot to cover in this video, so if you already know what professions that you will be leveling in the Burning Crusade, then you can use the timestamps in the description below to find the section that pertains to you. A lot of the figures that I'm using are a bit of calculated averages mixed in with some napkin math. Crafting skill ups are a chance. So if you get lucky on your dice rolls, you may need less materials than I have listed, or you can be unlucky and end up needing a little bit more. For all of these items, I took the average number of crafts to skill up and added between 5 to 10 extra crafts to be a bit conservative. If you end up having extra materials at the end of crafting these, you can sell them during the Burning Crusade, as the price will likely increase between now and then. Skilling up in professions is based on your current skill compared to the item skill as it turns yellow and when it turns gray. I used the following calculation to create a schedule for all of these crafting recommendations to get my materials that I need. First, let's take a look at alchemy. With the current in-game recipes, you can get your alchemy skill up to 350, all without needing to use any of the new TBC herbs. Once you are at 350 skill, you can make primal mites, which is going to be in high demand all throughout Burning Crusade, but in super high demand for the first few weeks of the expansion. The primal mite pattern can be purchased from the alchemy supply vendor in Shattrath named Skra. If you are one of the first people to get through the dark portal, you may want to run your butt over to Shattrath and get this recipe ASAP. Alright, now what should you be crafting? I would recommend choosing one of two routes depending on your server's prices. The first option is to craft 200 greater protection potions. And this will depend on the price of materials and the recipes that you have. The materials for these will be 200 dream foil, and depending on the potion that you're making, it will be elemental fire, elemental earth, elemental water, dream dust, or shadow oil. After crafting the 200 greater protection potions, you would craft 120 major mana potions. And the materials for that are 360 dream foil and 240 ice cap. To store these materials, it'll take a total of 60 bag slots. The second option to boost your alchemy up super fast is to make 240 major mana potions. The materials for these will be 720 dream foil and 480 ice cap. These materials will also take up 60 bag slots. The number of crafts that I have listed should get you to 350 with some materials left over, but if you are unlucky, you may end up needing additional materials. Before you decide which potions to make, take a look at the recipes that you have. Currently, the protection potion recipes drop from specific mobs out in the world and are fairly easy to farm this late in Phase 6, or you can purchase the recipes from the auction house if they are available. In order to get the major mana potion, you will need to complete all three of Ava Sarkov's quests, and that is Dr. Theon Kristonoff the Butcher, Kurtonos the Herald, and Kristonoff's Bag of Horrors. This will open up a vendor outside of Skull-Immense that will sell you the recipe. If you'd rather skip this step, you can still get up to 345 with the greater protection potions, but you will need to craft some of the new TBC potions to get up to 350. I made a simple spreadsheet that's linked in the description below via Google Sheets, and this will show you a cost comparison between the two options that I have laid out. On the Google Sheet, in order to make edits to the calculation, you need to make a copy of it and update the prices for what's currently on your server. As you can see on my server, the two methods are pretty close in cost, but it will depend on how these material prices change in the upcoming weeks in the pre-patch. Now on to blacksmithing. A lot of melee will be switching over to blacksmithing in TBC for the new powerful bind on pickup crafted items. The first thing that you should craft is elemental sharpening stones, and that is if you were lucky enough to get the pattern from MC. This pattern is a rare drop off of several of the bosses in Molten Core. If you do not have this pattern by now, I wouldn't count on getting it since the drop rate is about 1%. But if you do have the pattern, you can make 60 of these elemental sharpening stones, and that'll get you to skill level 320, and the sharpening stones will be able to be sold during leveling up. You will likely make most of your money back, since this pattern is not an easy pattern to get, and people will want to have the weapon enhancements while they're leveling up their characters. To make these sharpening stones, you will need 120 elemental earth and 180 dense stone. These materials will take up 21 bag slots. If you do not have the elemental sharpening stone pattern, then you can make imperial plate boots. You can learn this pattern from Darrowtain Mudsipper in Gadgetzan, who will have a quest required for these patterns available once you hit level 50 and are blacksmithing level 265. You will need to turn in 20 thorium bars for the boot pattern, and while you're there, you might as well bring an extra 30 thorium bars for the chest pattern, as we will be also using that to boost up our blacksmithing. You will make 20 pairs of imperial boots, and that will get you to about 317 or a little bit past that. For this, you will need 360 thorium bars, and that's 18 bag slots. Once you have crafted your sharpening stones or boots, you can make the imperial plate chests up to skill level 340, and this should take you about 80 crafts, which is 1600 thorium bars. Those materials will take you 80 bag slots. Now here's the part where my goblin brain is going to give you a little bit of advice. You can make the imperial plate chests. Yes, you can. But alternatively, you can make iron vine belts. If you have access to a higher level enchanter, either your own, a friend, or a guildmate, these belts will disenchant into large brilliant shards, which will increase in demand as we start raiding in TBC. This pattern requires friendly with Cenarian Circle and can be purchased from Vargas the blacksmith and Cenarian Hold in Silithus. You will need to make 80 of these, which the total mats will be 480 enchanted thorium and 160 living essence. And these materials will take up 40 bag slots. Another alternative, once you hit skill level 325, if the price of 20 thorium bars is greater than the price of one adamantite bar, I would make lesser runes of warding instead, which can take you to level 335 for about 40 crafts, for a total of 40 adamantite bars. If you are trying to spend the least amount of money possible on boosting your professions, check your server prices before leveling up your blacksmithing. And if it is way cheaper to use the new TBC mats, sell some of your stockpile of thorium and buy the new stuff. I know I included a few options for leveling up blacksmithing, so I included this in my spreadsheet that's linked in the description to help you calculate the cost of making each item. And now for enchanting. Enchanting is an interesting profession since it largely requires you to burn enchanting materials on your own gear or wait for others that want the enchant for their gear. But as an enchanter, you can also make mana oils, which can be sold on the auction house. And that's going to be the route that I recommend you go for those first set of skill points. The brilliant mana oil pattern is available from Rin Washo the trader on Yojamba Island. You must have a friendly reputation with the Zandalar tribe. You can easily get this by running Zul'Grub a couple times or turning in bijous or coins. You will craft 90 brilliant mana oils to get up to skill level 330. For this, you will need 180 large brilliant shards and 270 purple lotus. Once you make these mana oils, I would hold on to them and sell them on the auction house at a later time, as they are arguably the best healing mana oils in the game, even though it is a level 60 weapon oil. To store your large brilliant shards and purple lotus, it'll take 23 bag slots. From 330 to 335, you can enchant Superior Defense to Cloak, which is a pattern that can be purchased from Lorelei, Wintersong, and Moonglade. For these 5 skill points, you will need to enchant 110 of these cloaks, which is a total of 880 illusion dust, and this takes 44 bag slots. Make sure that you have 4 greater eternal essences, and 6 large brilliant shards to upgrade your arcanite rod to a ruined fell iron rod, which you will need to make for some of the higher level enchants. This will take 2 bag slots. The highest that you can get your enchanting using materials available prior to TBC is 340, but that does require having some rare world drop patterns. If you have the pattern Enchant Bracer's Superior Stamina, you would use this instead of Enchant Cloak's Superior Defense. This would take about an average of 100 crafts, and you would need a total of 1500 illusion dust to get from 330 to 340. And that's about as far as you can get in enchanting with only the old world materials. 1500 illusion dust will take 75 bank slots. Engineering. Engineers are a bit lucky here. They are one of the few professions that can craft something that can be used throughout the Burning Crusade. You can get from skill level 300 to 340 by crafting around 100 field repair bot 74As, which is 1600 thorium bars and 200 fused wire. To learn this recipe, you would need to be at skill level 300 in engineering, and you can find the plans for this repair bot in the 5-man dungeon Blackrock Depths near Golem Lore Angle Mark. I've been able to clear up to this boss with 3 well-geared 60s, but you can also join a lower level party of 5 and easily clear to the boss. You can avoid killing the boss if you don't want to. Just have the non-engineer in the party pull the boss while the engineers click the pattern on the ground. Now let's talk about fused wiring for a moment, because there are 2 ways to get it. One of the current ways to get fused wiring is to make a ton of target dummies and destroy them. You will need to make roughly 1400 target dummies to get 200 wiring, assuming the drop rate is around 14%. Here are the materials that are needed for 1400 target dummies. The wiring also drops from mechanical NPCs in Noberegan, which you can solo most of this dungeon at level 60. If you want to try and maximize your time spent gathering fused wire, you can use the target dummies while clearing Noberegan to increase the drop rate per hour. Another item that you may want to have a couple lying around ready for crafting is delicate arcanite converters. They are used in a few Burning Crusade recipes as shown here. I would recommend having these on hand if you plan to make these items pretty early in the Burning Crusade, since I anticipate the prices on the materials to make these arcanite converters to increase in the early months of the expansion. Oh, and I also forgot to mention, the 1600 thorium bars and 200 fused wiring will take up about 90 bag slots. Jewelcrafting is the new profession that is coming out with the Burning Crusade. At this point, we aren't sure if players will be able to level jewelcrafting up to 300 in the pre-patch, but for the purposes of this guide, I'm going to assume that you already have your jewelcrafting skill up to 300. There's only one item that you're going to want to have a ton of, and that is, and you probably guessed it, thorium ore. I would recommend that you have at least 1400 thorium ore to get your jewelcrafting up to 350.
Hey guys, I just realized that I said a couple times that you needed only 1400 thorium ore, and what I meant to say was 4500 thorium ore. Sorry.
But honestly, you can always have more. I think thorium is really going to spike in price at the beginning of the Burning Crusade, so having extra that you're able to use or sell is just going to be icing on the cake. 1400 thorium ore will take up 450 bag slots. Yeah, that's a lot. You can make your life a bit easier by making a prospecting macro so that you can just mash one button when prospecting your ridiculous amount of thorium ore. The macro that you would be using for that is /use prospecting /use thorium ore. Probably the quickest way to get from 300 to 350 is to take the uncommon Outlands gems that you got from prospecting your oodles of thorium ore and cutting them into useful gems that you can sell to other players. And this will get you from level 300 to 350, and it should take you roughly 90 crafts. Ideally, you will want to take a look at what you have the most of and cut those first so that you can save the rest of your uncommon gems. You want to have relatively even amounts of the uncommon gems because once you have your skill level at 350, you can switch over to making one brilliant glass every 20 hours to further increase your skill ups to a max of 380. This pattern can be learned from the jewelcrafting trainer in Hellfire Peninsula. 350 skill level is where you can make all of the rare gem cuts. So as you start collecting patterns, you can use these to skill up as well. I would not cut anything that you can't use yourself or that you couldn't sell at a profit. Otherwise, I'd say just be patient and get the majority of your skill ups from the brilliant glass cooldown. Leatherworking. Oh man, you remember all the tryhard raiders when they switched to engineering for sapper charges? You're going to have a lot of those people switch over to leatherworking for drums. I know they vastly nerfed the drums at this point. They added tinnitus. They made the range a lot shorter, but you're still going to have drums in most of your raid groups. So I still think a lot of people are going to be going leatherworking in the Burning Crusade. So I will give you a couple options and you can go with whatever is cheaper on your server. First, if you have turned in the Onyxia head as a leatherworker, you will have learned how to make the Onyxia scale cloaks. Depending on your server, the materials for these may plummet in price between now and when TBC comes out. There will be less demand for the cloaks, and you will have an opportunity to make these and have an enchanter disenchant them into large brilliant shards. You will have to find a tailor that has the recipe for the cindercloth cloak, which is a pain in the butt to farm. I know because I've done it, and you will also want to price out the materials for the cindercloth cloaks. I'm not going to give you a total number of materials because this is largely going to be bottlenecked by the amount of Onyxia scales that you can get your hands on. But we may see some guild banks that are going to offload the Onyxia scales in the upcoming weeks before the expansion. But to make one Onyxia scale cloak, you will need 5 bolts of rune cloth, or 25 rune cloth, 1 essence of fire, 1 rune thread and those are the materials for the cindercloth cloak. And then to turn that into an Onyxia scale cloak, you'll need 1 Onyxia scale, 1 rune thread, and that cindercloth cloak. Alternatively, you can go the easy route that doesn't require you to figure out the pricing, or possibly wait till the last minute for cheap Onyxia scales, and that is to make a bunch of wicked leather belts. You will want to craft about 100 of these to get your leather working from 300 to 340. For these belts, you'll need 1400 rugged leather, and that'll take up 70 bag slots. You'll also need 200 black dye and 200 rune thread. These are sold by the crafting vendor, so don't buy them ahead of time. The Onyxia scale cloak and the wicked leather belt have the same chance to give skill ups, so you can swap between the two depending on availability of materials on your server. Now let's talk about tailoring. Currently on the Burning Crusade beta, the cooldown to craft mooncloth has been removed, which is consistent with the patch build that they are using. Because of this, you can stockpile fell cloth and craft as many mooncloth as you need once the Burning Crusade comes out. For tailoring, you can get from skill level 300 to 340 by making 150 mooncloth bags. Mooncloth bags are a 16-slot bag that are similar to the Traveler's Backpack. In the Burning Crusade, there are a couple new bags that are added, one of which is the Netherweave bag, which is also a 16-slot bag. But the Netherweave bag is a bind on equip, so you're not able to move that bag from one character to another if you decide to reroll, or if you want to use the bags on a different character. Because of this, the Traveler's Backpacks and the mooncloth bags will be in slightly higher demand than the Netherweave bags. For 150 mooncloth bags, you will need 3,000 rune cloth and 300 fell cloth, and 150 rune thread, which you would buy from the vendor as you're making the bags. If you are short on space, you can craft the rune cloth into bolts of rune cloth. The rune cloth by itself will take up 150 bag slots. If you turn them into bolts, it's going to take about 60 bag slots. The fell cloth will take 15 bag slots. So on the low end, it'll still take up 75 bag slots. If you are on a server where fell cloth is prohibitively expensive or just not available in mass, then you can make rune cloth shoulders instead. The overall cost of crafting these shoulders will not be recouped in the same way that selling the bags would be. The total materials needed will be 5,250 rune cloth, 300 iron web spider silk, 600 rugged leather, and 150 rune thread. These materials will take up 150 total bag slots. It's worth mentioning that if you don't want to get all these massive space-taking materials, you can craft bolts and nether weave to get from skill level 300 to 325. So I will include a cost comparison in my spreadsheet linked in the description that will calculate the difference for you. So unfortunately, this method only brings you to 340. And as a tailor, if you are rushing the profession, you want to get to 350 so you can start making primal moon cloth, shadow weave, and spell weave cloth. So you will need to make some of the TBC recipes to get those last 10 skill points up to 350. And the faster you can do that, the more of these cloth cooldowns you can utilize. And the faster you'll get your gear, or the more money you'll make, whatever route you're going. Now, I know it's not a primary profession, but I wanted to touch briefly on cooking. Cooking is one of those underrated professions that can offer some great buffs to your character at a relatively low cost. I actually don't recommend spending a ton of money getting this profession boosted as much as you can, but you can easily get to 330 with old world materials. After that, it'll be relatively inexpensive to level using Outland recipes. For this, I would recommend crafting 70 smoked desert dumplings, and that will get your cooking skill up to about 330. As you level up in Outlands, there are a lot of patterns available to get your cooking skill beyond 330, but this will give you a little bit of a head start, and that way you can keep up with all of the Outlands patterns as you get different recipes available in the zones that you're playing. So let's talk about gathering for a second, and that is herbalism, mining, skinning, and fishing. There isn't much you can do to boost these professions with old world materials, but there is some preparation you can do to give yourself a bit of a boost while working on these. There are some items and enchants in the game that can give you an increase to your gathering skill. This will allow you to pick up things that would normally be too high, while allowing you to skill up normally. And I have these items and enchants shown on the screen here. Now let's talk about storage. You may have noticed for each section of the video I was telling you how many bag slots your items will take. Now I want to talk to you about the fun world of bank vaults. For each character you get a 20 slot bag, 4 empty bag slots, a 24 slot bank with up to 6 extra bags that you can purchase for increasing amounts of gold, which I will show on the screen here. I will usually buy up to the 4th bank slot for 25 gold on my bank vaults. And I will use 14 slot bags on the characters that I'm using for storage. This gives me a total number of 156 bag slots at the cost of 36 gold, plus the cost of bags on my server, which is around 24 gold for 8 runecloth bags. So that's 60 gold for 156 slots of storage, which I think is a steal. And then once you're done with that bank vault, you can take the bags and either resell them or use them on an alt that you actually want to level. So now I have some tips for gathering all these materials and staying organized. You may have noticed that you are going to need to buy a lot of stuff. I would recommend buying a little bit at a time. Just check your auction house each time you log in and buy up some of the cheaper items. Sometimes you'll get lucky and see someone listed a ton of stuff at a low price, and then when that happens, just buy it all up. My second tip is to make use of auction house bids. If you see someone with a ton of something you need, make note of how much time is left on their auction and try to check back around that time to update your bids. The language used on the auction house tells you a window of time that is left. Short means less than 30 minutes, so that's between 1 minute and 30 minutes. Medium is between 30 minutes and 2 hours. Long is between 2 hours and 8 hours, and very long is greater than 8 hours. My third tip is if you have time, you can go farm some of the materials you need. Every little bit of materials that you're able to farm is more money in your pocket. And my fourth tip is to use tools to help you stay organized. I use an add-on called Bag Brother, and this gives you the totals across all of your tunes and will allow you to view your alt's bag space from any character. And I also like to keep either a list or a spreadsheet of what I need. And this is really useful if you are either holding on to materials for different characters. If you're buying extra to sell at a later date, you can mark that off. But it's just really good to like earmark certain things so you know what you're saving them for. And that's all I have. I know these lists of materials are a little bit sweaty, but I haven't seen anyone out there do the math, and I wanted to do that work for you guys and share it with you. So if you are curious about what you would need to get to kind of boost your professions, here it is. Of course, none of this is necessary to play the game. You can easily just go through and level professions like as you get the materials in the new world, and that is perfectly fine. We all just get to play the way we want to play, right? I want to thank you guys for watching this video to the end. I know that this is a long one. Making these videos has been really fun for me as we get closer to the TBC launch. It's a pretty fun way for me to spend my time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!